Well, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
I think so. We can hear
Okay.
you. Yes.
Excellent, excellent. Okay. Well, Tal, thank you for inviting me to speak this morning. And the topic that we're going to cover is a very important one right now, and it's very topical at the moment. I'm going to cover a number of dimensions of this, but particularly, try and drill down to sort of how to prepare your employees for digital transformation, which is often known as sort of industry 4.0, but it's really the shape of business in the future. And I'm going to be covering a number of topics today. So let's just quickly look at the agenda. First thing I'm going to do is do a recap of digital transformation. What is digital transformation? And I'm only doing this just to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we have a common understanding of what digital transformation is all about. The next thing I'm going to talk about is, what skills are required to digitally transform an organization. And, following that, how do we validate and develop those skills? So, if we look at digital transformation, we need to have skills to support that. And therefore, we need to validate our existing skill base and then develop to satisfy the requirements. And then I'm going to sort of move on to what are the e-learning solutions that can help develop those skills. So really a sort of bit of a journey that we're going to go on together this morning to cover this off. And then finally we'll have a Q&A, which I'll let Tal moderate and see if I can respond to some of your questions or some that have already been provided. But before I proceed, and this is going to be a bit tricky, so you're going to have to let me know whether this works or not, but I'd like to just share a digital transformation video, which is part of our courseware. And I hope that this is actually going to come up okay on your screens. So let me, just one moment, let me just stop this for a second and then, okay. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I was sharing with sound on the system. So let me just play this. It's possible that the video may be just a little bit jittery because of the speed of the internet, but I think you'll get the idea for some of the content.
Falling hardware prices and sophisticated software applications have made powerful digital tools more accessible than ever. Digital transformation is the process of realigning or investing in technology, business models, and processes to drive new value and experiences for businesses, customers, and employees. This allows companies to create new sources of competitive advantage and compete more effectively in the ever-evolving business landscape. Companies also need to distinguish between digital transformation and digital optimization. Optimization adds value through efficiency, and transformation adds value through growth. Both are important, as organizations that don't optimize while also creating new business models and ways to interact with their customers will fall behind. By the mid-2000s, most traditional retailers could see that their products could be delivered digitally, especially media such as movies or music. However, clothing retailers didn't think that consumers would want to buy their clothes online, because they would want to try them on before buying. They were wrong. In 2017, Amazon, the world's biggest online retailer, also became the biggest clothing retailer in the US. digital commerce affects every retail sector, with Amazon even expanding into the grocery sector. Unlike some companies, General Electric, perhaps better known as simply GE, quickly realized the importance of adapting to a rapidly changing digital business environment. Because of this adaptability, it's now the only surviving company from the 1896 Dow Jones Industrial Average. GE's digital industry strategy began with improving its own internal productivity, and then providing these practices and technologies to its customers. They also make some of their technologies available to companies in other industrial sectors. A successful digital transformation rests on 5 key points. The first is ensuring that the organization develops the capabilities needed for a digital transformation. Next is the development and building of a digital platform for the Internet of Things to run on. The third point is creating a network of partners that drive innovation across sectors. The fourth is changing the employee culture to align with the digital industrial environment, which means focusing on rapid decision-making and the acquisition, development, and retention of digital talent. The final key point is driving business model innovation by keeping operations agile and advancing internal improvements. For any organization to digitally transform itself, it needs to transform its operational processes. For example, a company can use software to automate certain administrative tasks, such as processing invoices. It might then transform its business models by creating an e-commerce store. It also needs to transform the way it interacts with its customers, perhaps by developing an app that allows customers to receive personalized product recommendations. Or, for other businesses, an automated self-service kiosk for customers to complete purchases. Successful companies cannot allow themselves to be left behind after the digital revolution. Digitally transforming an organization is necessary to ensure it will stay competitive in the ever-evolving business landscape.
Okay, so thanks for listening to that.
As part of its digital
Sorry, let me just stop it
transformation,
now. So I think that'll give you a sense for some of the content that we've got available to support digital transformation, as well as give you a quick summary about what digital transformation is all about. But let me just try and define that, just in our own terms and for our own region, because this transformation is one that is not just about the technology that you saw there, but as you also saw, the business models themselves. So if we have a look at digital transformation, the fact of the matter is this is inescapable. All organizations are being threatened by competitors that are innovating in a digital way. And legacy businesses cannot afford to stand still. They must critically look at their own organizations and consider operating in a different way. That really does mean fundamentally changing business processes. And changing those processes isn't just a matter of deciding to do things differently, but it really is changing attitudes and mindsets within the staff to make sure that they are embracing that change and innovating within their own roles. So the HR function also has to undergo a rapid change to make sure that rather than just supporting the business of today, they are supporting the business of tomorrow and really preparing the workforce for the agility required to operate in this new paradigm. And so just a quote from Fujitsu in the UK, but what John Vickerman says is that across the UK, over the last few years, they've seen businesses in every industry grapple with a digital future and what it might mean for them. HR is no exception, as the pace of technological change continues to gather speed, and organizations around the world want to make the most of digital technology. However, many businesses are struggling to maximize the potential of this technology. So what he's saying is that there is no question that you need to do this because your competitors are doing it, your peers are doing it, you have to do this as well. But it really does require some concerted effort, particularly on behalf of HR and L&D, to put in place learning programs that will allow organizations to move forward in a digital age. So if we then look at, what is digital transformation, let's have a look at a definition for this. Digital transformation is the integration of digital technology. So all of the things that you're starting to hear a lot about, not just the basic computer technology, but all the emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, like blockchain, like virtual reality. These start to filter into all areas of business and fundamentally changing how you operate and deliver value to customers. So the end point is delivering a better service to your customers, better products to your customers, but it requires a cultural change that requires organizations to continually challenge the status quo, experiment and get comfortable with failure. And one of the words you'll hear me mention many, many times during this presentation is the term agility. Agility is that flexibility, that agile nature that will allow organizations to experiment, try things, execute them, and then move on to something new or evolve what they're doing. It is no longer possible to have a business model that stays in place for many, many years. Business models need to evolve and change, and this, is quite disruptive for existing business models, and it's happening globally. Now, we saw some examples of that in that video that I showed, but here are some other examples just in the retail space here. And if we look at a company like Uber, which in most parts of the Asia Pacific region has been taken over by Grab. They are the world's largest taxi company, and they compete directly with existing local taxi companies, and yet they own no vehicles. As a company, they have no vehicles of their own. They leveraged a crowdsourced model for a fleet of vehicles that is the largest in the world. And so, that has disrupted the taxi industry. And I've got a bit of an example on the next slide about that. If we have a look at Facebook, they are the world's most popular media owner, and yet they create no content at all. They use users, individual people like you and me, to populate their platform with our content to entertain other people or to communicate with other people. So they also introduced a completely different style of communicating and sharing in the world, and obviously the most popular in the world. Airbnb is another provider that has now the world's largest accommodation provider. They compete directly with Hyatt and Hilton and the Marriott chain of hotels, but yet they own no real estate. They just provide a marketplace for people to offer their own real estate to others to become their accommodation when they go on vacation or when they want to stay in another city. So they completely disrupted the hotel business with a completely new business model. And finally, Alibaba, who I'm sure you all know, they are the world's most valuable retailer, but all they are is a marketplace for vendors to reach customers directly, not in the context of an eBay, which is individual to individual for the most part, but this is getting organizations connecting with customers. But as a company, they have no inventory. So again, they've completely transformed the retail space in a very, very short period of time. And one thing you'll notice about these companies is none of these existed, a decade or two ago. These have just come up from nowhere, and they have surpassed in value a lot of the organizations that have been around for, tens or even hundreds of years. So if we have a look at, what this is actually doing locally, if you have a look at an article in VN Express, top Vietnamese taxi company sues Grab for $1.8 million in losses. Grab's business model has completely disrupted the taxi industry in Vietnam to an extent that the Vietnamese cab owners have tried to sue Grab for 1.8 million. Now, in so many respects, there is not much they can do about that because, this has been sanctioned by the Vietnamese government. And the Vietnamese government has embraced this new business model that Grab has taken to market. As such, the taxi owners have no leg to stand on. And what they really need to do is they need to adapt themselves. And one of the things I note in Singapore now is that the taxi companies have become much better at providing credit card capability, at providing online booking, at providing things that Grab introduced and made fundamental to their business model that now the taxi companies need to catch up. So, there's a very local and very recent example of, what is happening just in Vietnam. Similarly, the banks are being disrupted. So in Vietnam, the peer-to-peer lending activity has really taken off. And that's caused the financial institutions to have to re-engineer their offerings because it has such a tremendous impact on their bottom line. If they can't get individuals, if those individuals are going elsewhere for their financial services, ultimately those financial services will evolve and banks will be marginalized to just managing the big transactions. And clearly that is not what they want to do. So these are just a couple of local examples as to what impact digital transformation is having. And so the fact is that it's having an impact on every vertical and every functional area right now. And so, if we have a look at just the vertical area, you've got the automotive industry, you've got consumer, professional services, telco, mining and minerals, logistics, healthcare, media and aviation. And every single one of these industries has a digitally disruptive technology that is directly impacting their particular business. And so every single one of these industries needs to take on board the new technologies, but also transform the business models to provide that high level of personalization, to provide, Internet of Things for tracking and digital services, to provide robotics and 3D printing for the production of high quality low volume spare parts through metal printing. You know, I read just yesterday that Hewlett Packard has now produced over 100 million metal spare parts using its 3D printing technology. And what that means is that no longer do spare parts organizations have to hold inventory of a massive number of spare parts with incredible holding costs for those spare parts. They can just have the specifications for that part either stored locally or sent to them by a manufacturer, and they can print that part locally and make it available instantaneously, bypassing all the supply chain, bypassing all of the transportation costs, and they can just produce a spare part on demand. So, you know, these are massive things that are impacting the industry, but it's also impacting the functional areas themselves. So within each of the verticals, the finance organization is being impacted by things like blockchain or machine learning. Marketing is, you know, really being impacted by social and marketing automation, digital marketing, you know, social media in particular, you know, operations, 3D printing, obviously, sales, which is not on here, but sales is being impacted. You know, call centers are being impacted by artificial intelligence. So there isn't a single part of any organization that isn't being touched by some of the disruptive technologies. So Tao, let me pass over to you for a quick break in Vietnamese.
Thank you, Mike. That was awesome. Let me recap it in Vietnamese. Thảo xin nhấn mạnh lại một số thông tin nền mà Mike vừa chia sẻ như sau. Thứ nhất, chuyển dịch số thực chất là cái quá trình mà tích hợp công nghệ vào mọi khía cạnh của công ty và hoạt động kinh doanh, sẽ làm thay đổi một cách căn bản cái cách mà công ty đang vận hành hoạt động để mang lại cái giá trị cho khách hàng. Đây là một cái xu hướng mà tất yếu không thể tránh né được tại tất cả các lĩnh vực kinh doanh, cũng như là tại tất cả các mặt tài chính, marketing và vận hành của một tổ chức. Mike cũng có chia sẻ là anh chị có thể không quan tâm đến quá trình này. Anyway thì đối thủ và đối tác của anh chị thì cũng đang thực hiện chuyển dịch số rồi. Đây cũng là một cái quá trình mà chuyển dịch về văn hóa, khi mà các tổ chức liên tục phải thách thức những cái hiện trạng hiện có của kinh tế xã hội, liên tục phải thử nghiệm những cái mới và làm quen với việc mà họ sẽ phải gặp những cái thất bại. Tại Việt Nam thì không biết các anh chị quản lý đã cảm nhận thấy được cái áp lực cạnh tranh từ những cái mô hình kinh doanh mới hay chưa, những cái mô hình rất khác biệt với truyền thống. Ở những cái slide phía trên thì Mai cũng đã đưa ra những cái ví dụ về sự kiện giữa công ty taxi truyền thống Vinasun và Grab Taxi, một loại hình vận tải vô cùng phổ biến trong khoảng 3 đến 5 năm trở lại đây. Trong khu vực và trên thế giới, các nhà lãnh đạo đã hoàn toàn nhận thức được nếu như không chuyển hóa tổ chức của mình, công ty sẽ sớm bị lạc hậu. Như một cái câu trích dẫn ở phía trên của giám đốc nhân sự khu vực Anh và Ireland của tập đoàn Fujitsu, thì ông ấy đã chia sẻ là trong một vài năm qua tại Anh, các công ty trong tất cả các lĩnh vực đều đang bị ám ảnh với câu hỏi là tương lai số có ý nghĩa gì đối với công ty của họ, và những cái giám đốc nhân sự cũng đang rất băn khoăn về cái vấn đề. Mike có nhấn mạnh rằng là người quản lý nhân sự thì các anh chị cần nhận thức và cảnh báo cho CEO của mình. Ông ấy có nói là HRD jobs is to train the CEO, là những người mà giám đốc về nhân sự thì phải coach lại, phải train lại cho những người lãnh đạo của mình về cái việc là phải chuẩn bị cho nhân sự của mình những cái khung năng lực, những cái kỹ năng cần thiết để mình có một cái công sở số trong cái thời đại digital transformation hiện tại.